What's up, guys? It's Dwayne, back again for another video, back again for a reaction, and today's a great day because it's a Sweden day. 5 mistakes Americans make about Sweden. That rhymes. 5 mistakes Americans make. And thank you very much to my View Family Patreon member, who should be popping up on the screen right now, for suggesting this video. If you'd like to suggest a video, link is in the description. Without further ado, let's get into this reaction. Let's go.
Hey guys, what's going on? It's your boy Andrew coming at you, and in this one I thought it'd be fun to talk about 5 myths that Americans always get wrong about Sweden. When I go back to the States, I get asked questions all the time, and a lot of them are incorrect, and I thought I would share with you the most common ones that I get.
Cute.
And we'll go into it and we'll explain it together. I wrote some stuff down. I got my coffee ready to go, so we're going to take a little fika together. One of the things that a lot of Americans make the mistake of when they're talking about Sweden is they always call Sweden Switzerland, or they get the two countries confused. A lot of times I think they have the best intentions.
And the thing is, they're so far away as well from one another. They're not even that close. To be, you know what, I'll be very honest, years ago, before I really knew much about Scandinavia, much about Sweden at all, when I was a kid, I probably did get mixed up between... Not mixed up, but just I didn't know the difference between the two. I didn't know where Switzerland was, and I didn't know where Sweden was. So I could understand that, in a sense. If you're ignorant and you don't know about something, they both have a SW at the beginning of their name.
One thing I want to say about Americans is we are not as well traveled, but I gotta make an excuse here. And let me make this excuse. When you're only getting 1 to 2 weeks vacation, and in some cases people get 3 weeks vacation if they've been working a longer time.
That's crazy.
It's a big investment to go and travel to another country. So for a lot of people it's tough, or maybe they can't afford it. Where if you're living in Europe, like me going from Pittsburgh to New York City is like going from Sweden to Norway, for example. It's about the same distance, and you can just hop on a train. You don't even need a flight. In a lot of European countries, you can just drive around everywhere, and that makes it much easier, I think, to be well-traveled. But I will say overall...
You see, Americans always say that, but do you know what it is? We take for granted. I think a lot of European people take for granted that we can just jump in a car and drive 2 hours down the road and get to another country, or 3 or 4 hours down the road and go to another country. Like, I don't think we do that enough. It is actually super easy to go to a European country for the weekend, but I just don't think we do. We still stay in our respective countries most of the time. But for an American, when they come to Europe, they just like, oh my God, like I can go to another country like 2 hours away from where I'm staying. Like for them, it's like, wow, because America's so huge. It's bigger than Europe. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's so huge for them. It's so, like, to drive from one state to another state, from the East Coast to the West Coast, is like a ridiculous amount of time. So, I get it. I get his view.
More well-traveled than Americans, but I do think we do a good job. It's just not enough. Let's say, like, 20, 30% of the population is well-traveled. A lot of people can afford it or can't afford it. And so when they're talking about it and they're asking me questions, they're always getting that confused. What part of Switzerland are you from? How do you like Switzerland? Then you got to usually say Sweden. And I got to tell you, if you're a Swede, it'll totally trigger you. I can tell you so many Swedes tell me it triggers them, especially those that go to the U.S. and they constantly get asked this question about Switzerland. It's just a mistake, you know. Americans
and then nothing alike.
Geography. I was fortunate enough to have a really great teacher who made me memorize all the countries and capitals in the world. And I don't know every single one now, but I'm pretty good at geography. I think geography is really important. The understanding of the world is important. And when you're in America, sometimes you're just stuck in that bubble. And like, yeah, you can go to Canada. Yeah, you can go to Mexico. But for a lot of people, if you're like in the middle of the state, maybe that costs everything. It's just really tough.
Yeah. It's even worse if you're from, well, not worse, but if you're from the UK, like Americans always think that you're from London. They don't think of anywhere else but London. I guess it's similar with Stockholm. Like a lot of people think about Stockholm, but Sweden it's a big country. There's loads of other towns and cities. Like I've only now discovered the other cities and towns in Sweden through learning, whereas I only knew about Stockholm, and I know for a lot of people they only know about London. But there's like so many other cities you can see.
More Americans can travel in the future. Number 2, I got asked this question a lot when I first came to Sweden. For some reason, a lot of Americans think that Sweden and a lot of European countries are all like Amsterdam as far as their laws go. So a lot of people thought that MJ is legal in Sweden. It is not.
MJ?
It's a big deal here.
MJ.
Number two, I always get
marijuana. Mary Jane. He said MJ. I was like, Michael Jackson. Is MJ legal? Marijuana. Did they really think that? Did they think marijuana is legal in all of Europe? Like, I think marijuana it's only legal in Amsterdam, right? In the Netherlands. It's only legal in the Netherlands. I don't think anywhere else. At least I don't think. I think it's the only country in Europe.
Asked if prostitution is legal. Again, these were questions that people asked because they were curious, because they just thought that Sweden had very liberal laws, like a lot of countries do. And in the case of Sweden, I can say this: prostitution is legal if you are the person who is the prostitute, but it is illegal to buy. This is a law in place in Sweden to help protect women who are most likely going to work in that profession, and maybe are in that situation for bad circumstances.
So prostitution is legal for the prostitute, but prostitution is illegal for the person soliciting the prostitute. Is soliciting the right word? Someone looking for a prostitute. So it's legal to sell, but illegal to buy. Huh. I guess it's so that you're not criminalizing. That's assuming that the prostitute is a victim. And when I say that, I mean, like, sometimes, like, prostitution is good money. Not sometimes. Prostitution is good money. Like, sex work is very, very good money. Like, are you seen as a prostitute if you're an OnlyFans performer? Because a lot of people make a lot of money off OnlyFans, which is basically prostitution. And I guess you're not sleeping with people, so it's not prostitution, is it? But if you're sleeping with people for money, and you're making a lot of money, and you could work in a convenience store, but you wouldn't make the same amount of money, are you vulnerable? Are you should it be legal for you, but illegal for the person that, I don't know. It's a difficult, it's a difficult thing, isn't it? I don't know. Morally, is it wrong for someone to spend money on a prostitute, but it's okay for someone to be a prostitute? I don't know. This is too complex for me to figure out right now. Guys, let me know in the comment section what your stance is on prostitution. And do you think it should be criminalized for both the prostitute and the person paying for a prostitute? Or do you think this is the correct way to do it, to criminalize someone that is spending money on a prostitute, and then making it legal for prostitutes to be prostitutes? If that makes sense. Tongue twister.
It's a law in place to protect them, but it's still not legal. It is against, if you were a person buying that service, it is illegal to do it. And again, it's just a way to protect women. So that's how I would answer that question. But for some reason, a lot of people think that. Kitty, can I do my video, Kitty? Number 3, I get this question a lot as well. Everybody thinks people in Sweden are all blonde and blue-eyed. And I get this question a lot. I will say there are a lot more blonde and blue-eyed people, women and men in Sweden than you would typically see in the United States, or if you're going to go to some other countries. So it is there. But in my experience, it's very common for there to be, red hair is like less common, of course, but it's very common for people to be brunette, blonde, red hair. Not everybody looks the same as Swedish, but I will say that there is a European look. I see that. Like, with Swedish people, like, it's like a facial structure thing where I can look at someone and be like, yeah, you're definitely Swedish, where, like, maybe an American doesn't have that. Because Americans, we tend to be like such a cultural mixing pot, where I think I see there's more of a European look. There's more of a Swedish look. But yes, not everybody is blonde and blue-eyed. It is definitely a bit of a stereotype. This is another question.
It's a stereotype, but there are more blonde and blue-eyed people in Sweden than other places. I get it. Okay. So it's a stereotype, but not a stereotype at the same time, because there are more.
I see this in the comments and stuff in real. like,
free
in
stuff.
general. And this has to do with the negative sides of socialism. See, Americans always hear of the horror of socialism.
America's the greatest country in the world. We need conservatives in Washington that will keep it that way. I'm running to stop gun control. Open borders. The Green New Deal.
Honestly, Americans scare the life out of me. Do you not just think, I'm sorry, like, do you not think, guys, like, for my Europeans, for my Swedes, they're just a bit, this is how we, this advert's funny because this is how we see Americans. They just scare the life out of me. I just think they all carry guns. I'm scared to go to America because I just think, wow, guns are legal, like, it's legal, you can carry a gun, you can get a gun license, you can walk around with a gun. And people with bad mental health can just pull out that gun and shoot somebody. Like, it's just really easy for them. And that scares the life out of me. Like, if I go to America, I would not want to get into an argument with anybody. A disagreement with anybody because they could just pull out their gun and shoot me. Like, it's not like in Europe, you get in an argument with somebody, 9 times out of 10, it's just an argument. Or, like, if you get into, not that I get into any arguments, but, like, you can be safe. I feel like you feel a bit safe not knowing that, like, if you get into an argument, the worst that might happen is the guy might punch you in the face, but not shoot you in the face. Americans.
And socialism.
Scary.
Cuba, for example, in other countries that had socialism that collapsed, they usually fail to recognize that America put a lot of sanctions on this country. Like, even if you look at a country like Cuba, it'd be interesting to see what Cuba could have done if it wasn't so heavily sanctioned by the United States. But Sweden is a democracy with a strong social safety net where a lot of taxes go to that. Instead of bombing countries overseas and putting our money towards that, like we do in America, they say, hey, let's actually use that money for our own people and try to make their lives better. I prefer that system, to be honest. And then wanting free stuff. I hear this comment all the time from Americans about free stuff, wanting free stuff. I'll tell you this. I was in the middle of a job transition once here in Sweden, and it was possible that I might have needed Al-Casa. I could have even applied for Al-Casa. But luckily I was able to fix my situation. This was just due to the pandemic and things I had to deal with. And they do. They have, you can go and you can get that, you can search for another job. And I will tell you, just going through the job process, to try to get Al-Casa and going through the proper channels and doing that.
He's definitely saying that incorrectly. Not that I'm Swedish. Is it Al-Casa? Al-Casa. He's like, Al-Casa. Al-Casa.
Terrible. Like, it was so challenging to even get it started. I felt like such a terrible person while going through the process. And then, like, and I don't mean it in a bad way. I'm just trying to say that, like, on top of that, when you are getting the free stuff, you have to be looking for a job. You have to be proving you're looking for a job. They have so many things in place to try to make sure that people don't abuse the system, that when you're in that situation, you already felt terrible. Like, I felt terrible. It was out of my control. It was the pandemic that was causing it. But I felt so terrible. Luckily, I was able to sort out my situation. But I would say that you don't have a bunch of Swedes just wanting free stuff. It's just considered a part of the culture and benefit. This idea that I often hear in the States, oh, you just want free things, oh, you don't want to work hard. I really don't understand, because the harder people work in America, the incomes don't go up. That's a big issue. That's a big issue why people aren't there, or there's like no job there anymore. You know, I saw an interesting comment someone had on Twitter that was like, go to college or you'll be flipping burgers. And then they said, are you too good to be flipping burgers? What, you want $15 an hour to flip burgers? And it really kind of shows the American attitude towards this, where I think that a lot of people would benefit from having a strong social safety net. Going back to what I said earlier about Sweden having really harsh MJ and just those type of laws in general, and it has to do with the fact that if you're going to use the strong social safety net, you are considered, you have to be responsible and take care of yourself. You will not be looked at goodly if you make a lot of very bad, unhealthy decisions. It is something in Sweden that they see. So that would mean if we had the same thing in the States, you wouldn't be going and buying like a huge drink, and drink sizes would be massive all the time. The funny thing is, I feel like a lot of Americans will be more up in arms about not being able to get a big gulp than like providing health care for everybody. But that's just something I've noticed over the years. The last myth that people always come and they ask me, they talk about
taxes are high.
Taxes are too high in Sweden. So
However,
I gotta say that yes, taxes are high in Sweden, and let's just use me for an example. I'm gonna talk about what tax bracket I'm in, and then what tax bracket I would be in the States. I would say roughly, if I was in the U.S. working, I looked at the tax rate, I'd be paying about 22% in taxes. Whereas
22% in taxes. Okay.
In Sweden, I'm paying about 28% in tax. When you get up to a certain point, your income starts to get taxed at 50%. But this is but it's just the money you make over that point. So let's say the cutoff rate is 40,000 Swedish crowns. Once you hit 40,000 Swedish crowns, anything above that, for example, is going to be taxed at 50%. Yes, that's a bummer. And I often hear Americans talking to me about, oh, well, I wouldn't get a chance to be wealthy, because a lot of Americans that are against these things think they're all going to be Bill Gates or Elon Musk and don't realize that they're actually going to be hurt by the system. But my argument to this is this. It's not that big of a tax rate change. I will say that taxes are higher if I want to buy items and things like that. If I want to buy a computer, I'm going to pay higher tax rate. But Europeans tend to have a lot less stuff, but they live a good quality life. And my argument to this is 22% tax rate in the States. And then let's say the average American is $50,000 in debt and will have health problems over the course of their lives that's going to cost out of pocket for them for a lot of Americans. Whereas you're making less money in Sweden, possibly because you're making a higher tax rate, but you don't have to worry if you get sick, and you're also set up better when you go to college and education. I think people don't realize, I'm paying 5,000 crowns a month towards my student loans, where a Swede is paying 1,000. So when people are thinking about being really wealthy and having a huge salary, just imagine if I could take that 5,000 I'm paying to the U.S. and then put that in a retirement account or an investment account.
Yeah.
You would be way more.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. Especially degrees and student loans and all that type of stuff. I so wish that I didn't have to pay for that. The fact that you guys get free university is a godsend. Out of my wage every single month, I have to pay back my student loan, which was I paid 9,000 a year on the course, and then I think I don't know what my maintenance is. My maintenance loan is something similar, not far off. Maybe I think it's about 14,000. Try to do the maths now. 14. About 50 grand. I'm about £50,000 in debt because of university. For doing a degree that, by the way, I'm not actually using. £50,000 to be a teenager, 18 years old, and you graduate when you're 21, right? Say you do a 3-year bachelor, and to be £50,000 in debt like I am, is insane. And to enter the workforce without working a day in your life, only part-time jobs, and to enter the world with £50,000 in debt. Do you know what I mean? It really impacts the workforce and people. It's depressing, actually, when I think about it. I try not to think about it. And that's the UK. In America, they pay a lot more for student loans and student fees, for course fees. So yeah, I wish I grew up in Sweden, honestly, because I'll be paying that back probably for the rest of my life, because on top of that £50,000 is interest, and interest accrues. So basically you end up just paying back the interest. You just never get out of debt. You're always in debt to the government or whoever you got your loan from, mostly the government. Yeah, I wish I was Scandinavian.
Way more wealthy than you would be if you're in the States and you're in the opposite situation, paying off all these bills. I mean, there's so many Americans that are struggling to even buy a home sometimes. So I think people miss that. So I would actually say that I think that most Swedes, if they take advantage of the right way, if they invest smartly, if they save their money smartly, are better set up than the majority of Americans in the United States.
I'm British.
These are the 5 myths that I typically hear that people bring up either in the comments or real life. And I was just curious, what did I miss? What are some things that people have said to you when you've traveled to the States? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? By the way, if you like this t-shirt and want to support me in any way, this is my clothing brand, Nordic Streets. The link is in the description, and I can pin it in the comments. Great quality shirt. You will not find a quality shirt for this price. And what's really cool about this shirt is this is actually
I like the shirt.
Where this was the view from my apartment when I would leave it when I first came to Sweden. This is actually a part of Lundgren that I really liked.
Ah, it's a nice shirt. Go support him. Andrew Austin, I like this guy. Thank you very much for suggesting that. Like, I'm really happy that I got suggested that by one of my View Patreon members. Link is in the description if you want to be part of the View family. And yeah, guys, thank you very much for watching. Until the next one, I will see you soon.